Mr. Jim Rohn shared 2 philosophies with me that completely changed my life. And in this video, I'm going to share with you those 2 philosophies. G'day and welcome. My name is Willem, and on this channel, I share the philosophies and the wisdom that Mr. Jim Rohn shared with me over 30 years ago. By consistently executing and applying those philosophies in my life, I've been able to live my life on my terms, and I know that if you take to heart the philosophies I share here and apply them in your own life, you will be able to achieve the same results. Okay, so let's jump straight into these 2 philosophies, and if you stay till the end, I will share with you a PDF that will assist you to apply these 2 philosophies in your life. The first philosophy Mr. Rohn shared with me was the law of averages. If you do something often enough, a ratio will appear. Let's say I went out onto the putting green with 8 golf balls and I placed those 8 balls in a circle about a meter out. Now, I'm going to try and putt all 8 balls. I may get some in and I may miss some, but let's say I do 4 out of 8. So that now is a ratio for my putting at 1 meter out, 4 out of 8. And if I was to do that a week later, I would probably get the same ratio. In American baseball, if you can hit the ball 3 times out of every 10 pitches, they say you're batting 300. In sales, if I make 10 calls and I get 1 appointment, my ratio is 1 from 10. The key here is to know what your numbers are. The management consultant Peter Drucker always said, and this is actually in my office on my wall, whatever you can measure, you can manage. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, you can't improve it. So that was the very first philosophy Mr. Rohn shared with me, the law of averages. Find out what your ratios are in the things that are important to you in life. Now, the second philosophy he shared with me was this. Once you know your ratios, simply make up in numbers what you lack in skill. And I'm going to repeat that because it's so important. Once you know your ratios, make up in number what you lack in skill. So taking my putting story from before, where I'm hitting 8 balls from 1 meter out towards the hole, the first time I do it, I might get 4 out of 8. Second time I do that exercise, I might get 4 out of 8. Third time, I might get 5 out of 8. Why is that? Well, the reason is I'm making up in numbers now what I am lacking in skill. And the more you do something, the better you become at it. It makes sense because by the 4th or the 5th time I'm doing this exercise, I'm getting the feel of the green really well, the speed of the way the ball is moving across the grass. And so it makes sense that the more I do something, the better I'm going to get at it. In sales, let's say I make 10 cold calls and I get 1 appointment. I make another 10 calls, I get another appointment, another 10, another appointment. By the time I'm making my 40th call though, I'm now getting 2 out of 10. Why is that? Well, it's because I'm making up in numbers what I'm lacking in skill. And by making up in numbers what I lack in skill, my skill is actually increasing. I'm starting to work out what works, what I say gets me an appointment, what I say doesn't get me an appointment, and I'm adjusting accordingly. So that second philosophy is just so important. Make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Now, the great thing about having a ratio is you can now compete. And that, to me, is what life is all about. You can compete with yourself, you can compete others, you can compete as part of a team. But to me, life is all about living life to the max. But to do that, you need to know what your numbers are. So let's say I have a competition here in the office with Robin, who's my sales manager. And let's say Rob can get 3 appointments for every 10 calls she makes. So if she makes 100 calls, she'll get 30 appointments. I can only get 2 out of 10 for every 10 calls that I make. But if we have a competition, I will win. Now you might say, hey, hang on, Will, you can only get 2 out of 10. Robin's getting 3 out of 10. How could you possibly win? And here's my answer. While Robin is making 100 calls and getting 30 appointments, I will make 200 calls and get 40 appointments. I win. In other words, I will simply just work harder than Robin. Now, this is only an example. Rob is the best sales manager I've ever had. So Mr. Rohn's philosophy of make up in numbers what you lack in skill really comes down to this: work harder than anybody else. Mike Weinberg, the author of New Sales Simplified, has a philosophy. He says, make one more call. And that is just a great philosophy. If you do that, you'll beat anybody who's more skilled than you. You can beat anyone by simply outworking them. Jim Rohn tells a story of an American basketballer called Dr. J. And a reporter asked him what was the secret to his success. And he simply said this. He says, I demand more of myself than anybody else could possibly dream up. Now that to me is just a great philosophy. Jim Rohn tells a story of the guy who wants to climb the mountain. He says, most people say it's too hard, it's too dangerous, it's too far. But pretty soon you will see me waving from the top or dead on the bottom. In other words, I'll do it or I'll die trying. Now, if you have a philosophy of I'll do it or I'll die trying, the universe seems to almost stand back and go, you know what? I think he's pretty serious about this. We better just let him have it. To adopt that philosophy, I'll do it or I'll die trying, is probably one of the most important philosophies you can internalize in order to be successful at anything you want to do in life. Now, the bonus I promised you is a PDF. And in that PDF, you'll see my summaries of the best 10 books that have contributed to my own personal development over the years. And I know that if you take those 10 books on board, if you read them, I'm sure you will adopt the philosophy of I will either do it or I will die trying. Now, if there is a topic you'd like me to cover, or there may be something you're struggling with in your own career or in your own business as an entrepreneur, could you leave a comment below and I will see what I can do. Mr. Rohn has just about got a philosophy for every problem I've ever encountered, so maybe I can share something with you. Okay, if you liked this video on the 2 philosophies that Mr. Rohn shared with me, I know you would like the other videos I've done till date. They're available on the playlist just up there, and you can have a look at those, see what you think. So I would ask you to adopt those 2 philosophies. The law of averages, find a ratio on the things that are important to you. And the second philosophy, make up in numbers what you lack in skill. If you do, I know you will thank me later.